So my strategy is to try and protect my flank from his cavalry, while again choking up this bottleneck. And what I'm going to do is send up several units at a time, piecemeal, and try and wear his men down, and whenever my men start to rout, I can simply replace them with fresh troops. That's my idea, so that's how I'm going to start off. So I go ahead and move up my rifles to get in some skirmishing fire. I don't think that they're going to be super effective on this kind of rough terrain, but they can do their job. And of course his chasseurs cheval in the woods there were in range, and they killed 5 of my men with that opening salvo there. So my rifles are about to be in range of my opponent though. There they are. And they're now going to open up. So now my opponent is taking a heavy skirmish fire and artillery fire. And this is all part of my strategy here. It's a multifaceted tactic that's supposed to weaken the morale of extremely strong troops like Old Guard. So even though these Old Guard are down to 97 men, they're still an extremely credible threat. So I guess this is like a classic testing of the old Rome Total War discussion that I used to have of quality versus quantity. And I've seen it work both ways on Napoleon Total War, to be honest. I've seen quantity beat quality, and I've seen quality beat quantity. It really depends on your tactic and how well you execute. So my opponent's still using his chasseurs cheval to harass my skirmishing troops, but here I think he makes a mistake. He charges this unit down. To be honest, on this particular map, a skirmish fight is not going to be important, and I honestly think he's wasting his cavalry here, because they're going to get shredded. Of course, he's probably just aiming for some disruption, and he does accomplish that. And you can see my howitzers had a bit of a misfire there, and dropped their shells very close to my own men. But I think this is cool. Check out the battlefield. There's a huge fight going on, smoke coming up in the air, and then the French troops advancing in the back. But again, look and see that I'm only defending here with like 3 units of line. Like I said, my strategy is going to be to piecemeal reduce their numbers. And I have moved up this unit of foot to skirmish with his horses that are in the woods, and that will keep them at bay or force them to move. My opponent did move 3 units of his chasseurs cheval down here to threaten my artillery. And in order to protect my artillery, I have my 2 units of dragoon guards and a unit of foot back here. And I also have my... I'm keeping my general, though, close to the fight, because there is no sense in bringing an expensive historical general and keeping them far away from the fight. I will say that's one mistake I think my opponent made by keeping Napoleon way back here. So you can see that his high-quality troops have moved up, and yes, they're bottlenecked, and yes, they're taking a pretty good amount of damage, but you can definitely see that they are destroying my lower-quality foot units. So now, I'm going to proceed with the next step in my plan, which is to move up fresh reinforcing troops, and I'm even going to put a bit of flanking fire on these Polish legions there. And that's going to drive my opponent back, but again, he can't run too far, because my howitzers are constantly bombarding his men. So my opponent's troops are under an extreme amount of fire, and that's kind of the only way you can break the morale of troops that are this high quality and are led by a high quality general like Napoleon. He's now activated some of his cavalry though to disrupt my flank, and he was quite successful in that. And he ruptured my right flank at the top of the hill, and you can see now he's making the intelligent move of pushing through quickly, and that way he'll be able to outflank me. He's got a unit of Polish Legion, Old Guard, and Voltigeur all through, and this is going to force me to do a tactical retreat. So I go ahead and inspire my men with my general there. You can see me doing that. And here very shortly I'm going to withdraw my men down the hill, because to be honest, my opponent's crafty push forward here caught me off guard and devastated my right flank. And so I have got to hurry and get the Duke of Wellington out of there. So there he goes running off. Fortunately, those troops didn't open fire on him, and now you can see my men performing a tactical retreat. And the only thing that is allowing my men to retreat is my artillery, which is going to keep bombarding fire on my opponent as my men run away. So there you go. Now my general did take a couple of hits there on the way down the hill, but my general didn't die. So here I am retreating down the hill, and I'm going to quickly reform. My opponent's trying to use his cavalry to run some distraction. It'll work to a certain extent, but I'm just going to countercharge them with my dragoon guards. So he's really not going to cause that much distraction, and my troops are now reformed, and his line infantry is going to march into some more massive volleys. So this is going to be kind of like a war of attrition on my part. He won that fight up on the hill, but I'm going to pull back and use the bold nature of his strategy against him. You can see there that my artillery actually just blasted a huge hole in my own line. That is one of the dangers of using artillery at close range, is that a miss can hit your own men. So I have to be careful of that. I definitely noticed it, and I'm going to try and rectify it. Now my opponent is actually charging his chasseur forward in an attempt to take out my artillery, and fortunately I saw this coming, so here comes an epic cavalry fight. My Dragoon Guards get in without being shot, really, by his chasseur, and my Dragoon Guards are going to waste these guys in an extended melee. And that's really what heavy cavalry is good for on Napoleon. They're good for long-term disrupting tactics, because they don't rout easily. And they're also good for long-term melee fights with your cav. You can see that the old Duke of Wellington here is active and roaming around behind the lines. And here I'm going to actually use him to distract this unit of chasseurs, who is charging the rear of my line. And because my general's around, it keeps my men from suffering from the morale shock there and routing. But I do have to be careful because I don't want my general to die. If he dies, I'm in big trouble.
Our men are running, sir.
So my opponent is once again trying to breach my flank, and he kind of does breach my flank at this point. And his men are badly depleted, but if I sit here and stay in this fight, he will beat me. So I'm going to have to make another tactical retreat here, and in order to help my men retreat, I'm going to use my cavalry. So I've charged my Dragoon Guards in, and I think I retreated my general. Yeah, I retreated the Duke of Wellington back here. He's down to half strength in his unit, so I have to be very careful with him. If I lose him, this fight is over. So here's what heavy cavalry is good at. I'm going to charge them over here into these enemy flanking forces, and it's actually going to, I think, rout this old guard unit. Yep, there they go. And then I'm going to use them to distract this Polish Legion. And now you can see that Napoleon has come up to join the fight and inspire his men. I think this is a smart usage by my opponent. But you can see my artillery still hammering away at the French, and in order to let my men have a chance to retreat, I had to sacrifice my cavalry. So my noble Dragoon Guard here is fighting against the Emperor himself, and here is the Emperor Napoleon, right there in the thick of the fight. I was really hoping he would die here, but my horsemen are behind the lines, and so I can't fully expect Napoleon to get killed, since my men aren't going to be at their most effective. I do manage to rout, though, some Voltigeurs. This is why heavy cavalry is useful. You can see that it just doesn't rout quickly in a melee fight, whereas light cavalry would. So again, that allowed my troops a chance to retreat and reform. There you go. So my Dragoon Guards finally rout, but now my opponent is in a bad situation. I have regrouped line infantry up here on the hill. I have my main line reformed, supported by the Duke of Wellington, and my 2 units of artillery, which are still very much intact. So my opponent is faced with no option but to attack me. If he doesn't attack me, I'm just simply going to destroy him with my artillery. He can't run from me. So it was a very close fight indeed. I would say at this point, though, I definitely have a decisive advantage. I think up until a couple of minutes ago, though, my opponent really had me on the run. But because of a couple of good moves on my part, by stopping his cavalry attack on my artillery, and by tactically retreating my men at the right moment, I was able to save what would have otherwise been a loss. So you can see here, I hope the strategy part of this battle comes through. I want you to understand that I came into the battle with a certain strategy. When my opponent ruptured my flank, I was able to still use part of that strategy, which involved my artillery, but I had to rethink my strategy. And had I just stayed there and tried to force that fight up on the hill, I would have died. So don't be afraid to adjust your strategy as necessary. You can see that my opponent definitely adjusted his strategy from the last battle. He used the same basic aggressiveness, but he tried to focus on one of my flanks and rupture that flank, and he did accomplish that rupture. So there's really not a whole lot of fighting left. Let's see which troops are left on the battlefield. Napoleon, I forgot. I was shooting at him with a unit of rifles down here in the woods. The head regrouped, and I tried to kill Napoleon again, but he managed to survive, so the Emperor lives. Lucky for France, not so good for me. But you can see that my opponent's army is all but routed, and I now definitely have a superior edge. And so I'm just letting my units here duke it out with his Polish Legion. And hopefully I will get the chance to kill Napoleon again. But we'll see. Perhaps Napoleon will live to fight the Duke of Wellington another day. So I thought this was a cool historical matchup of generals. That's one of the things I like about the historical generals that you can use on Napoleon. So my opponent here is using his remaining line infantry as cover, and he's going to attempt to charge Napoleon around the flanks and try and help break my troops, but I can also answer with my own general.
Glorious victory, sir, is soon to be yours.
So I did train my artillery in on Napoleon's bodyguard, and once again, my attempts to assassinate the Emperor from long range failed. And here he is on a glorious charge with his men, albeit an ill-fated charge, but glorious nonetheless. And he has charged into my foot. And here's the Emperor himself, leading his men, but his unit routs because of the losses, and off rides the Emperor himself into the sunset. Or not exactly the sunset, because I don't see the sun, but he's going to ride off into the hills and do a little rethinking of his strategy. So, hope you enjoyed this battle. I really enjoyed the two battles I fought with this opponent. Very good. I wish that all opponents were like this. Part of the reason I liked it, like I said, is just because there was so much movement and strategy involved. Look at the massive number of kills that my artillery got right there. That is insane. So that shows you what kind of good artillery can do when used properly. So these two artillery pieces were definitely the best use of my money in that battle. And it ended up becoming a sound strategy on my part. Even the Duke of Wellington got himself a few kills, so he should be proud of himself. The rest of my infantry was pretty standard on their number of kills. Hope you enjoyed this battle. Good game to my opponent, and hopefully I'll bring you more battles in the future.